here we are again. Give me a second. Hello there, my name is Tasos. I'm a documentary filmmaker from Greece, and my big goal is to give a voice to 100 communities around the world. You see, with everything happening on this channel, with the rebranding that has happened, for those of you that have been following me since the Greek solo days, as I like to call them, and more new people coming in and joining us on our journey to reaching 100 communities around the world, I felt it was time to reintroduce myself to you because, you know, most of you new people here have no idea about my background or who I am, so I'm gonna try to make a very long story as short as possible. I started traveling full-time around 3.5 years ago. At the time, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just a kid that had just dropped out of university and had a burning desire to see the world and hopefully finding out who he is in the process. So I started traveling around Southeast Asia and I started creating content in Greek, giving tips about solo travel and hoping to inspire other people my age to do the same. Then, Myanmar happened. You see, a big reason I create documentaries today is a single trip I made in Myanmar in 2019. Me and my friend Alex rented 2 motorcycles and traveled to the west part of the country where we hope to find an ancient tradition of local women having tattoos on their faces. That was really the first expedition type trip I'd made to date, and it's safe to say it was the most difficult one. Getting there and taking those pictures took so much out of me, but the creative and personal reward was so much higher. The idea of gaining access into places most people want in order to capture content that has higher value to the audience was planted into me. A few months later, I had to come back to Greece for obvious reasons.
The coronavirus.
After saving up a bit, 1 year after I'd started my first big trip to Asia, I decided to make my second big trip to date. That was on the other side of the world, and more specifically in Mexico. There came the first big change of the channel. That was starting creating content in English. That basically meant starting over. I might have kept the same brand name at the time, it was called A Greek Solo, but I had to delete all the content I'd made in Greek for the past 1.5 years and starting over in English. So I started backpacking basically in Mexico, starting creating travel vlogs. But you see, something was off. While making fun adventure videos, meeting amazing people along the way was great, something inside of me was taking me on that first expedition trip I'd made with Alex in Myanmar. That feeling of capturing something so unique and therefore having much higher value to the audience, at least in my eyes, that feeling wouldn't leave me alone. So I started brainstorming how I could incorporate this feeling and style into my own videos. At first, I was entitled. I was making all sorts of excuses. I can't make documentaries alone. I need a camera person. I need a sound designer. I need this. I need that. But then I sat down and said, I'm gonna try it on my own and see what happens. So I started doing research in order to find interesting and unique stories in South Mexico where I was at the time. I ended up filming 4 episodes, 3 of which you can currently find on the channel. After literally pushing too much, being one person to create these 4 episodes, trying to do the best work I can, I got burnt out. So I decided to go to the neighboring country of Guatemala, and more specifically to the amazing Lake Atitlan. I was taking some rest, I was gazing the sunset, drinking my coffee like I am now, and there it hit me. I have to promote these documentaries, man. Like, I need to find people to pitch these documentaries. And to my young, ignorant mind at the time, that place was New York City. The only problem was I literally knew no one in New York and I was getting low on cash. So there, sitting and gazing the horizon again, I started DMing and emailing any person I'd ever met in my life that had some sort of connection with the US in general. After a dozen messages, my friend George Brass, shout out to him, he has a YouTube channel, you should follow him. He done a van life project, but he had left his van in Pennsylvania. He told me, you know what, I cannot help you with, New York, but if you want to move and live somewhere for the first few weeks that you're gonna be there, you feel free to borrow my van. No money involved, nothing. He just trusted me. We didn't know each other in person at the time, so huge shout out to George because he basically gave me the chance to take that leap of faith and go to the US. So that's basically all I needed, I just needed one data point in order for me to book a flight and go to the US. So I book a flight, I go to Philadelphia. After getting interrogated for like 2 to 3 hours, I finally got into the country. So I take this bus and I basically go in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania to find this van. So I do find it. Then what? My sole purpose was getting to NYC and pitching my documentaries to people, which, by the way, at the time I had no product ready. I had just shot a documentary. So even if I was to pitch to someone, yo, I make documentaries, I had nothing to show to them. So, this is just me being young and ignorant, which is a superpower, trust me. So I had no idea how exactly I was gonna make it work, but one thing is for sure, I was determined. Since I couldn't work in the US being there as a tourist, I had to find some sort of work online, preferably in Europe, in order to sustain myself while being there. If you've been to the US, it's super expensive, to put it lightly, especially coming from a place like Latin America, right? So thankfully I did. I found a couple of clients online. I was doing marketing content for them in Europe. So my days were like this. I was trying to make the van livable. At the same time, I was working 8 to 8, basically 10 to 12 hours a day. And at night, after finishing my work for my clients, I was emailing and DMing any person in the video production industry in New York City. And my pitch went like this. Hey there, my name is Tassos. I just moved to New York City. Keep in mind, I'm living in a van in Pennsylvania in some random parking lot. But my pitch was like this. I just moved to New York City. If you want any help with any video you're producing at the moment, I will do it for free. Anyway, I couldn't get paid, but my plan was to go there, give my service for free. I was attaching my portfolio so people could see, and my further goal was to get in touch with people, go into events and meet people. After hundreds of emails and DMs, someone came through. Brett Conti, a very well-known creator in the city. He came through. He's like, my man, I really appreciate this. I have this charity event in this huge tower, crazy project in Manhattan. I would really appreciate if you could come and help shoot some photos and videos. That's all I needed. So I drove from Pennsylvania to New Jersey. I leave my van there, I take the train to Manhattan, and there I was. I still remember the first time I saw Manhattan. I was like a crazy kid. Everything in the US, and especially New York, is so much bigger. So I do go there in the meantime because I'm fucking poor, I'm living out of a van, I'm eating from the supermarket so as not to spend too much money. So I go to this tower, there's like 100 people there, and there was this surreal moment I remember. Unfortunately, I don't have this on camera because my phone froze when I tried to film it, but I go up and I remember Brett Conti looks at me, the Manhattan skyline behind him, and I approach him and he knew who I was. My brand at the time was a Greek solo, and he greeted me. He's like, yo, you're a Greek solo, I know you. And it was crazy moment because I was watching his videos when I was younger, like 2-3 years ago, imagining how it would be to live in the city. And there I was, this guy knew my name. I'm from a small village in Greece, I don't want to become too cliche, but it was a really surreal moment.
It's my first day in the city, man. It's my first day in the city. This is also for you. This whole celebration is for the community. So a piece of that is welcoming you to the greatest city on earth. Thank you, man. Like people try to make it here, right? Exactly. And it's for Greg also. Thank you for doing this. And we're here to make it, man. Let's do it. Welcome. Thank you.
The next couple of months included lack of sleep, but a lot of evolution. After that, I had to leave the US because of my visa, and I decided to go back to Mexico with the sole plan of renewing my passport because it was about to expire. So there is an embassy there in Mexico City, but if you know anything about Greece and its state institutions, is that they don't really work. So long story short, I had to come all the way back to Greece to renew my passport because the Greek embassy in Mexico City couldn't do it. At the time, I was super frustrated. I couldn't understand why I had to come and travel thousands of miles across the Atlantic to do something I could have easily done in Mexico. But as they say, everything happens for a reason, right? A few weeks after I came back to Greece, I was able to renew my passport, thankfully, and then the war breaks out in Ukraine. And in that moment, I knew that was the reason I had to come back, to go there and document the side we don't see in the news. After producing 2 videos on the Ukraine war, I came back to Greece, but then I realized I was becoming complacent. You know this feeling when you're in a familiar environment and you feel defensive? I started feeling that, and to my experience, that's not a good feeling, because if you feel complacent, you stop evolving. And so, for a variety of reasons, this reason included, I decided to move to Spain. Moving to Spain obviously got me back in aggression mode, as I said, but most importantly gave me the time to sit down and reflect on the past couple of years. I hadn't had the time, really, because I was going non-stop from one place to the other, getting to know myself, producing videos and all that stuff happening. I didn't have the time to sit down and think what has happened the last couple of years. And what I realized at that moment was that what I've been doing has changed. I've changed, really, I'm no longer that Greek kid that started traveling around Southeast Asia, creating content in Greek, hoping to inspire people in his country to do the same. What I've been doing has evolved in something way more serious. And this brings me to the second big change of this channel: unseen voices. Ending up with this brand name was a long process. I had to take into account many different factors, but most importantly, I want to empower you guys to be part of the journey of reaching 100 communities around the world. I didn't want it to be just about me anymore, because, me going into Ukraine, me doing all this crazy stuff is cool, but what's the point, I want to make you guys part of the journey. I want to make the voices, the communities that we give a voice to, the main character in the videos. As I explained in my mission state video, reaching 100 communities around the world is not gonna be an easy process, I'm sure you guys understand this. It's gonna be a rather long process that's gonna take years of commitment and work and dedication. The way I see it, the main obstacle getting there is gonna be raising funds. At the moment of recording of this video, I'm the only one financing this. I'm not rich person, I'm just a kid from Greece, I'm doing other gigs. All the money I make from my freelance work, I put into this, because this is my passion project and I'm invested 100% into this. So I don't know exactly how I'm gonna do it, but I'm here for the long run. I hope you'll stick around for the ride. It's gonna take us to places you honestly never thought possible. Thank you for watching, and I will hopefully be seeing you soon.